And if you want to understand how to move forward and relaunch the conservative movement, buy my book, Conservatives Betrayed, read it, pass it on to your friends, neighbors, colleagues. We need to expand the movement. And when you've read the book, you like what's in there, consider going to conservativesbetrayed.com, which is a website. It's going to be the first of maybe a dozen websites that are going to be involved in relaunching the conservative movement. So at conservativesbetrayed.com, we talk about how you can get involved in relaunching the conservative movement. As we all know, the establishment Republicans have betrayed our trust. Conservatives, we have a great blessings of liberty and freedom to protect, defend, and pass on to our children and grandchildren and generations unborn. We need to get about the business of protecting those blessings of liberty. Thank you very much, and I'll see you at the revolution. Thank you. Yes, sir. And if you want to ask a question, please go to the microphone back here. Yes, sir.
Thank you. It's a wonderful talk, and thank you for your years of service for our movement. I think in a few years from now, I think it's a good possibility in 5 or 10 years from now that all of us and future generations will be looking back, and I want your opinion on this, that isn't Ron Paul the next Barry Goldwater?
The marketplace will decide that. You know, I know Ron Paul. I love him. I've been supporting him for almost, well, not almost, over 30 years. So, you know, that's up to Ron. And quite frankly, I would like to see a dozen Ron Pauls out there. And let the marketplace, as conservatives, we believe in the marketplace, and let's let many candidates vie for our support. And Ron Paul is a wonderful, principled conservative. Of all of the 10 or 11 candidates vying for the Republican nomination this year, Ron Paul is clearly the most principled conservative of all of them. The vast, vast majority fail the Goldwater and Reagan test. And this is not only the top-tier candidates, but the second-tier candidates, with the exception of Ron Paul. They all, in my opinion, fail the Goldwater and Reagan test. As government has massively expanded in recent years, which of these other candidates, except for Ron Paul, has stood up and said, no, Mr. President, no, Mr. Speaker, no, Mr. Majority Leader, that's wrong? They haven't done that. So if they haven't done that in the last 6 to 10 years, as the Republicans have gone on a massive expansion of government, why should we expect that they would, you know, rein in government if they ever became president? Yes, sir.
Yes. You attribute the demise of the Republican Party to these big government economic factors, but in fact, the only reason the Republicans have won is because of their scapegoating of groups in the society. In 1952, it was the communists and the way that China was being dealt with. In 1968, it was the civil rights movement and the movement, the conversion of the southern states to the Republican Party as a result of their hatred of the black people.
Excuse me, I have to stop you there. It's silly and that's stupid. Conservatives, I'll tell you what we did do. Too many conservatives were silent, but to attribute hatred to black people in the 1960s, I'm sorry, sir, you're out to lunch, in my opinion.
Not only of the black people, but of the hippies during World War.
Well, can you ask a serious question, please?
Yeah, okay. Yeah.
Sit down. Sir, I'm sorry. You're impending. Whatever you're trying to say, I think you're pointing the finger back at yourself.
The reason the Republicans have won is because you have the South now. Before, the South was in the Democratic Party.
Sir, I'm sorry.
You're going to lose. The Republicans are going to lose.
You're at the wrong meeting. You should be at the Democratic National meeting.
You're blind.
Is any other questions? Let me. Well, another question is coming up here. Let me make a point that I think is very, very important. and I would like to have made it in my speech, but this is a good time to make it. And that is that many of us are focused on an issue that's very important to us. Many people here at this conference are focused on free market issues, economic issues, and that's wonderful. But I was there in the 50s and the 60s when we sat as conservatives on a two-legged stool: free market economics and anti-communism. And we would occasionally get 40, 45%. Not very often would we get 51%. And that began to change in the late 70s, early 80s, under the leadership of people like Paul Weyrich and the late Dr. Jerry Falwell and Ronald Reagan. And we began to add the social issues to the conservative movement. And that changed everything for us. And now we had a three-legged stool: strong national defense, economic issues, lower taxes, less government, and social issues. And it changed everything for conservatives. And those people who think, well, I only want people who walk, talk, look, and act like me in the movement, I'm afraid you understand something about American politics that I don't understand. Franklin Delano Roosevelt put together a coalition that governed America for maybe 60 years. By putting people together in a coalition, many of them couldn't stand each other. They really disliked each other. You had Southerners and Jews and intellectuals and labor leaders and African Americans. You had people who felt, though, that they had a piece of his presidency and presidencies that followed him that were Democrat. And so they didn't get everything they wanted, but they got 70, 75%, and they governed for 60 years. And if conservatives are going to govern in the future, we're going to have to recognize that there's not a 51% majority out of 300 million people that look, walk, talk, believe just like I do. And something else I will say that, and this gives me pause for concern. It's a serious issue for conservatives, and that is the culture. Conservatives only recently have been engaged in the battle for the culture. We were AWOL in the 50s, the 60s, the 70s, the 80s, as the left captured the culture in this country for the most part. And it is not possible, ladies and gentlemen, to lose the culture and win politically. That has to be a part of our plan as we go forward. And by the way, I have a plan. I know other conservatives have a plan. It's important to have a plan, and there are people out there who are developing plans to help bring conservatives to power. Yes, sir.
It is very possible that the Democrats will nominate Hillary Clinton possibly for president, a person who has huge negatives in this country. I think over 50% of the people say under no circumstances would they vote for her. What do you think the conservative response would be, assuming that we do not have a true conservative on the Republican side? Would that not be a good time to make a massive nationwide effort to elect as many Republican conservatives to House and Senate seats, realizing that in another 4 years there'll be another presidential election?
Well, I am certainly, that's an interesting question, and I'm glad you asked it. We don't know who's going to be the nominees for the parties. It certainly looks like the Democrats are going to nominate Senator Clinton. And the Republicans, I think, I don't see that Senator McCain or former Mayor Giuliani are going to be viable. I think it's going to be either Thompson or Romney, or maybe even a third candidate whose name we don't know now might arise. But we should support whoever we feel comfortable supporting. But the point I'm trying to make here very strongly is, don't put all of our eggs in the next presidential election. It's important, weigh in, participate however you think, but mostly conservatives should focus on the next 6 to 10 years and relaunch the conservative movement, focus on starting many new organizations, as you said, run our own candidates, support our own candidates, and let's take back this country. But we can only do it over a period of time by supporting principled conservative candidates and conservative leaders.